Welcome to the Rugby Obsession Deep Dive.
Great to be here.
If you're looking to get straight into insightful rugby analysis, make sure you subscribe to Rugby Obsession. That way you won't miss out on future discussions like this one.
Definitely worth doing.
So today, we're kind of unpacking some really fascinating perspectives on team selections, specifically for the upcoming British and Irish Lions tour to Australia.
Mm-hmm.
And we're focusing on comments from former All Black Justin Marshall, particularly his thoughts on Andy Farrell's initial squad announcement.
Yeah, and what's really interesting right off the bat is the way Marshall frames this. He's drawing a parallel to a pretty recent and, let's face it, very successful coaching strategy.
Okay.
He's comparing Andy Farrell deciding to, initially leave out his son, Owen Farrell, comparing that to Rassie Erasmus's approach with Handré Pollard just before the last World Cup.
Right. Okay, that's a big comparison. Let's delve into that a bit. So Marshall's thinking is, that naming a smaller squad faced gives Farrell some kind of strategic edge.
Exactly. It gives him flexibility. That's the key word, I think. He can potentially bring in a player like Owen Farrell with all that experience later on, if injuries happen, or maybe tactically they need something different.
And sort of managing the squad proactively?
Yeah, precisely. And think back to Pollard. He wasn't in that first squad, was he? Injury concerns. Libbuck was the only specialist 10 named initially.
Also that, yeah.
But then Malcolm Marks gets that terrible injury, and bang, Pollard straight in.
And played a massive role in them winning it all.
Absolutely. So it suggests maybe a calculated risk, one that paid off big time for the Bucks. Could Farrell be thinking along similar lines?
Marshall also brings up the pressure aspect, doesn't he? The pressure surrounding Andy Farrell picking his own son.
Huge pressure. You can imagine the scrutiny.
So Marshall suggests that by leaving Owen out initially, it might actually be a clever strategic move, I think he called it, just to sort of ease that pressure right from the get-go.
It makes sense. It lets the focus be on the guys who are named, lets them settle in maybe, while still keeping a really valuable, experienced option, in reserve.
Speaks to the complexities of managing a Lions tour. Every single pick is under the microscope.
Totally. And this approach, maybe it helps build a more settled camp early on.
Okay, so moving on slightly, but still related, goal kicking.
Huh.
Marshall really hammers this point out.
Oh, yeah. He emphasizes Owen Farrell's consistency, his reputation as a reliable kicker, and suggests that's maybe the key factor in a potential later call-up.
And he contrasts that with the other options, right? He mentions Marcus Smith and Finn Smith. Exciting players, definitely, but maybe not quite as proven week in, week out with their goal kicking under pressure.
That's his take. And he also points out the stats around Finn Russell. How his kicking percentages for his clubs like Racing and Bath have sometimes varied compared to his kicking for Scotland. It's an interesting observation.
Which leads to that quote from Marshall, the one about if Finn Russell doesn't start, they don't go in with 2 seasoned pros or have a Johnny Wilkinson where it's like, righto, anything within 45 meters, he's banging that thing over 90% of the time.
It's a great quote, really paints a picture. And he even notes Sam Prendergast, another decent kicker, also being left out initially.
It just highlights how vital, reliable goal kicking is at that level, doesn't it? Especially on a Lions tour against Australia, those tight games.
Points from the tee can be absolutely everything. The difference maker.
And building right on that point, former Wallaby Jeremy Paul, who was talking with Marshall, he strongly agreed. He looked at it from the opposition's perspective.
Yeah. Paul's view is interesting. He reckons having a really accurate goal kicker actually changes how the opposition plays, makes them more disciplined.
How so?
Well, he suggests teams just get way more careful inside that kicker's range. They know a penalty is almost a guaranteed 3 points, so they become penalty averse, maybe give away less quick ball at the breakdown.
Right, more disciplined, less likely to infringe.
Exactly. He used Johnny Wilkinson as the prime example, said teams would bend over backwards not to give away penalties anywhere near his range. It's a psychological thing as much as anything.
That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
Paul also threw out some ideas about backline combinations, didn't he?
He did. He was thinking, if Finn Russell starts at 10, maybe you see that Scottish 10, 12, 13 combination, Sione Tuipulotu and Hugh Jones outside him, capitalize on that familiarity.
That established understanding, yeah.
And he also gave a nod to Gibson Park at 9. Reckons he's the best bet for controlling the game.
Interesting insights from someone who's been on the receiving end of Lions tours and knows the Australian side of things.
Definitely. His take on how the Wallabies might change their game based on who's kicking for the Lions, that adds another layer.
And we should remember, Andy Farrell himself has said the door isn't closed. He mentioned potentially adding 2 more players later on.
Which absolutely keeps that possibility of an Owen Farrell call-up alive. It fits the whole narrative Marshall was building.
So when you look at this whole strategy, that comparison to Erasmus,
Yeah.
what really stands out to you?
For me, it's that idea of adaptability. Maybe we're seeing a shift in how coaches approach these big tours. Not just picking the 37 best players on day one, but building in flexibility, having key experienced guys ready, almost on standby.
Like having specialist reinforcements ready to go.
Yeah, exactly. Having the right mix, not just for the start, but for the finish line, too.
It's fascinating stuff. And the focus on goal kicking from both Marshall and Paul. It's just a constant reminder of its importance, isn't it? You can't win consistently without it.
No, you really can't. Not at this level.
So we'd love to hear what you think about all this. Does that comparison to Rassie Erasmus stack up for you? What's your take on the Lions fly-half situation, and just how critical is that top-tier goal kicker? Let us know your thoughts.
Yeah, drop your comments. And hey, if you're enjoying this kind of deep dive into rugby strategy and analysis...
And make sure you subscribe to Rugby Obsession. You won't want to miss what we tackle next.
So here's a question maybe for you listening to Chew On. Thinking about past Lions tours, what element ultimately proves the most decisive? Is it that goal-kicking accuracy we've talked so much about?
Or is it maybe forward dominance, setting that platform?
Yeah.
Or perhaps sheer backline brilliance, creating something from nothing? What's the absolute key ingredient in your view?
Interesting question.
Well, that was a really fascinating look into the strategic thinking behind selections and those parallels between coaching styles. We hope this deep dive into the Rugby Obsession source material gave you some food for thought.
Hope you found it insightful.
Thank you for listening to the Rugby Obsession Deep Dive. Don't forget to subscribe, and we look forward to you listening to our next episode.